All right. So, welcome everyone. It's Dr. Irfan. I wanted to share a video that I saw earlier this week with Nate B. Jones, and I think this is very interesting. And I wanted to go over it where he talks about something called dark code.
There's no going back. No setup. Just say hello.
Nobody understands their own code anymore. There is code running in production now at companies we use every day that nobody can really explain. Not the engineer who shipped it, not the team that owns the service, not the CTO. The code works, it passes tests, and no human on the payroll fully understands what it does, why it does it, or what would happen if it stopped doing it. The industry is starting to call this dark code, behavior in production that nobody can really trace end to end. It's not buggy code, it's not spaghetti code, and it's not technical debt. Dark code is code that was never understood by anyone at any point because it was made by AI. It was generated. It passed.
So what do you think about this dark code? Code that's made by AI. And what is meant here is, if you think about Lovable, Base 44, Replit, you're using all of these platforms to code and make websites, make apps, but you're not reviewing the code. That's what he's talking about. And more of this is being produced.
Automated checks and it shipped. The comprehension step didn't happen. Not because someone was careless, but because the process no longer requires it to ship. Now, this is often portrayed as a security issue. It's often portrayed as an engineering quality issue. I think we need to look past both of those. It's partly those things, but it's really an organizational capability problem. It's got regulatory exposure elements. It's got business liability elements. If you are building software right now, there is a fundamental shift in what it means to be good at your job. And at the heart of that shift is grappling with dark code, which is only going to 10x from here.
So do you think this is a threat? So do you think that dark code is something that's waiting to happen? Meaning we've got more and more engineers using Codex, Claude Code, and other platforms to generate code and to generate a lot of code. And it's so much that they're not able to either review it or review all of it. So now we've got a lot of products that are shipped or features that are shipped, and no one's looked at the code or understands the underlying framework of the code that's being used in these items.
I think it's a problem now. It's going to be 10x more next year. So in this video, I'm going to lay out what's actually happening, why the obvious responses aren't as effective as they seem, and what actually works. So first, let's dig into the problem. Anyone who's used AI tools, this is going to feel very intuitive. We're not going to spend very long on it. We have two reasons why dark code is multiplying, and they interplay to make things worse. The first reason is structural. AI generating code means that it is harder for you to understand the code because the AI wrote it in the first place and you didn't bang it out with your fingers. That is just a structural reason why it is harder to understand the code unless you're really, really disciplined with your
Now, I would argue with this that it's more so not that the fact that you didn't create it, but the fact that you're not reviewing it. So you're not looking at it and seeing what the AI did and how the AI put together the code and how did it work through to build this website or to build this app. You're not really seeing that framework. So I don't think that's important that you actually created the code, but reviewing it and understanding it, I think that's also very important.
Functional requirements. Hint, hint, you should be. The other reason why dark code is tough is because we are moving so fast. AI enables us to move fast. The pressure is to move fast. That is part of the reason we're making these trillion-dollar bets on AI as an industry is because we want to move fast. When you combine velocity with a structural reason not to understand code, comprehension starts to decouple from authorship unless you take really, really clear measures to prevent that. So that's the problem. We've all lived it, even if all we've done is type in, please make this in Lovable, and it makes something fast. That is dark code. Why do the obvious responses to dark code not work very well? Fundamentally, the obvious responses to dark code.
Well, if you're making something in Lovable, so you ask Lovable to make something for you, and you don't review the code. So if you just generate and start using it, then it's dark code. But if you actually take the code, review the code, it's not dark code.
Are rooted in the idea that this is a tooling problem, and it's not a tooling problem. Let me give you some examples. Number one, there's often a response to dark code that says we should make dark code observable. If we instrument every service in the stack, we're going to understand what's happening, and that's going to give us the ability to respond rapidly and effectively. I would respond and say, you know what? You should be observable. I love telemetry, but that doesn't mean the same thing as comprehension, right? That doesn't solve your dark code problem. It just means you can measure what dark code is breaking for you in production, which is great. You should do that. It's still dark code. It doesn't solve the problem. The second way people solve this that I think is also incorrect is people have an instinct, and here I'm especially going to call out my colleagues in engineering. There's an instinct to say we can harness the agents so the dark code by definition is fine. That is partly true. It is certainly good to have guardrails, right? It is certainly good to have excellent orchestration platforms. I've made videos about it. It's super important. Having an excellent pipeline reduces your risk in enterprise production systems. 100%. It's really important if you're building with an agent in 2026. But if you're adding layers to your agent pipeline, that is also not actually solving your dark code problem. That is just adding a layer. And when you try and figure out what went wrong with the dark code in production, now you have to troubleshoot multiple things. So that doesn't solve it either. It's still important. You still have to do it, just like the telemetry, but it doesn't solve the problem. Answer number 3 is to say it's okay to have dark code and we're fine with it. Factory.ai is a famous example of this. We're going to see this thesis tested. I think it is unlikely that we will survive for very long with code in production if nobody understands it at all. I think there will be problems if you don't understand the code thoroughly. And I want to give Factory.ai credit here because I don't think it's that they don't understand the code. I think it's that they're extending their understanding with a hypothesis that extraordinary testing and extraordinary discipline at the evals layer proxies for that understanding in a way that is useful and allows them to learn from their code. That is a genuine hypothesis that not a lot of people are trying, and most of the people who are YOLOing their code into production aren't as disciplined as Factory.ai.
I like the fact he said YOLOing code.
So regardless of how you do it, maybe you're super disciplined, maybe you're good at your non-functional evals, and that's how you're extending this. Or maybe, like most orgs that I've seen, you just YOLO the dark code and the PM puts stuff out there, and the engineering team puts stuff out there, and the marketing team puts stuff out there, and you gate it a little bit, right? You know, the marketing team has to manage the website, and the PM can only vibe code up to a certain stage, and then engineering has to take it. But the problem with all of this YOLOing is that nobody owns the sustained total package of code in production. You have problems with ownership because you have distributed authorship. And distributed authorship is a strength we want to encourage. So it's not as intuitive as saying you got to shut it off. And I know IT departments who are like, you know what, we're shutting it all off. Nobody can vibe code. Only engineers can write code. They're in trouble too. They're in trouble because they can't ship fast. So the answer is not as simple as don't do it.
What do you think about this? What are your thoughts on this as far as the coding that everyone now has to ship the code? So it's kind of FOMO. So he's a YOLO and a FOMO. So I'm wondering what are your thoughts on this and how things are going to move in the future?